All right, so I'm logged into DataBlend. My company is called Transform Your Business LLC, and you can see I have essentially an empty shell here, 3 empty boxes. The only thing that's really of value that's popping out here is the credentials, because I want to show you the process as if I only did steps 2 and 3 from the prior slide. I only set up the credentials, and now I'm going to do everything else for the integration. And then when we stop the clock, you're going to see actual data flowing between the two systems. So a quick note on the credentials, just to show you what these look like. This is the Sage Intacct side. Green dot means I've already established it through that web service user. I can click into the credential. You'll see it's got some basic information related to the user ID, password, sender ID, and password as well. So that's where if you have set that up preemptively, you simply key it in and you've established the connection. On the HubSpot side, this one here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add a brand new HubSpot credential just to show you how easy it is to establish that connection. So if I click in here and then I select HubSpot, let's call this HubSpot 2. I don't need to populate those fields. I'm going to hit connect to HubSpot. I have 2 instances of HubSpot. This is our internal instance. This is our demo. I'm going to select our demo, establish the connection, and let that finish up. I have now successfully, and if I go down and hit test, I have successfully connected to HubSpot. Might have taken me 15 seconds to do that. So as long as you have the proper permissions, that's how easy that entire process is on the HubSpot side. Okay. So now what we're going to do is start keeping in mind our quote to cash, our 3 workflows: customers, items, and sales orders. We're going to start with the customer one first. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to go to automate. We're going to go to wizards. And these wizards, I'm going to use that term a lot. It's where we've created a setup wizard, and you'll see the steps from start to finish, where you can walk away from this with a functional integration. I'm going to choose my source. There's a few options in here, but today we're going to do HubSpot into Intacct. And then for customers, you're going to see there's contacts, customers, and customers with contacts. And so if you have multiple contacts, billing, shipping, etc., you wanted that to get updated, you can choose one of the other options. Today, we're just going to do the customer one. So you simply make that selection. It pre-populates your 5 steps along the top. Let's hit next. So in here, I get to choose my HubSpot credential. Now, this is why we did this preemptively, because then I don't need to go back, make sure I have access. I'm ready to go start to finish. I already have my credential established. Once I selected my credential, you'll notice that it populated 161 items on the left. That's reading off of the available fields within HubSpot. CRM is one of their greatest values, their flexibility. You can customize it, you can add properties, you can add workflows and logic to it, and we respect that. We have the ability here to pull in all of those fields to your instance. So if you were using your HubSpot credentials, you might see 170, 200 different fields to choose from. The left side are all the available fields, and the right side are the fields that we've made assumptions and had a baseline of the fields that we believe Intacct's going to need. And you'll see it's stuff related to the address, the name of the company, the zip code, the website, and so on. If you wanted to add additional fields, you just simply select them, move them to the right, and then you can leverage them in the integration. So we're not limiting you in which ones you pass between the two, but we are making some assumptions to make your process a little bit easier. And then you can always add more beyond that are specific to your company and how you think of your business. So we're just going to move ahead. Then we get to essentially our mapping stage in the process. We go to our query step. The left side is your source, that's HubSpot, and the right side is Intacct, that is your target. If you've ever worked with Intacct import templates, those fields probably look really familiar because those are the column headers that you would normally see within the Excel that you then import to go update all of your customers within Intacct. So in here, it's automatically mapping between the two based on those assumptions that we made. But let's say that I changed my mind and I actually want my zip to go to my state for some reason. When I do that, it's going to then shift around where those fields are, and I can easily move them back. So you have the flexibility to map what fields go where. So let's say I wanted to add in a note or a description or some other custom field. Maybe I have a user-defined dimension, things like that. You have that flexibility to then mix and match what goes where from HubSpot to Intacct. So I'm going to go through. I'm going to hit next. Now we choose our Intacct credentials. Again, I did my homework ahead of time, and so now it's going to simply be available to me. I can hit next. This is about close to a dozen different tasks. I'm going to hit create. You're going to see it's going to run through them on the right. All of those things just happened. And even with me talking through it, that might have taken 2 minutes or so to go through. So you can see it's a very quick process, really simple questions along the way. And if, let's say, you go through it the first time and you forget a field, you want to go back through it and then set up a new integration with the new field, not a problem. You can rerun through the wizard any number of times that you need. While I'm in here, I'm going to favorite it, and I'm going to mark it as number 1. I'm going to hit save, and I'm going to go back to my dashboard here. That's where we were before. And so now you'll see it pops up in my favorites. I have the ability to run that. That's now going to run through, and it's going to do all those. In this case, it's 4 different steps. It's going to go get my HubSpot customers, transform them, and then send them over into Intacct. And then when that's done, I think it'll take about 30 seconds to go through. It's going to then have give us a successful state, and it's going to create those customers if they're new customers within Intacct. And if there was already a customer with that ID, it's going to align and update them. So if you have like an address change, it would take that into account. So I'm just going to let that finish up. And then once that's done, I'm going to hop into the item wizard and then take you through that workflow as well. There we go. All right, so close to a minute as it went through that process. But you can see now I have a successful integration. And if I wanted to run this and integrate the two, that's all it takes. So let's go into automate, and we're going to go back to wizards again. But this time we're going to go to HubSpot, we're going to go to Intacct, and we're going to choose our items. So update items right here. Once I do that, I go through same steps as for 1 and 2, almost identical as you go through it. There's 48 different items, just less fields when it comes to your different products is what it's coming from within HubSpot. On the right side, it's just going to populate the name, but if you wanted to add some other fields, you can. So for instance, if I want to take my description, let's go through and add that. Then we'll go to next. You're going to see same mapping exercise, but you only have the 4 rows to align with the ones that you've selected. Then what you could do, so you'll see here I added description. It doesn't know where to go. So what I'm going to do is simply click on this. You have all the Intacct fields available to you. Now these fields will be from your system. And so this is going to also tie back to what fields you have available on those different objects. In my case, I know that there's a notes field. And so I want to put my description in my note on the item. I also know that it's not an inventory item. I'm going to default everything to non-inventory. In our example, we're not going to have anything that's related to inventory. I'm going to hit next. Again, I choose my credential, Intacct, go through. This one's a few less steps. We'll hit save. I like to favorite all my workflows so they show up for me on my dashboard. Maybe change that name a little bit. Hit save, come back to my dashboard, and then I can kick that off. Okay. And now this is going to run through. And while this is running through, just to showcase that it's a successful connection, is I can come over here and go into my products. So I have these 3, right? Green widget, yellow widget, small blue widgets. I can then go into my HubSpot. And so you see here, here's my same 3 that I integrated. And maybe this is a large blue widget. I'm going to hit save, hop back over here. You can see this one only takes 20 seconds. I'm going to run that again. Once that's done, you're going to see that it already updated my data, my Intacct item within the item within Intacct. It's going to update. It's not going to create a duplicate. It's going to just simply update that field. It's going to update the description if I changed it. If I had other fields populated, same concept. It's using that ID to tie the 2 together. So if you have changes over time, new SKUs, that's all going to come through this same exact workflow. So I'm going to hop back over here, hit enter, large blue widget. So you can see that quick for us to go through the process and get our items synced. All right. Now my third and final step in this process is going to be the orders. And if you've worked with order entry transactions, that's going to be the most complex. So let's go through that wizard now. So we'll do HubSpot, Intacct, we'll choose order entry transactions, click through. Everything's the same so far. We try to be consistent in that process. You can choose within here the different fields just like you could on the others. We're going to go to next. All of this is the same. You can see you have more fields, a little bit of transformations here that are going through the process. We do at the bottom have a couple things to make it a little easier for you as well. In my case, it's a multi-entity. It's a multi-entity, multi-currency environment. So I'm going to post it to my location 10, which is my Texas location. And then also I can choose if I wanted to go into whichever state made sense for me. Then I'm going to hit next and choose my Intacct credential. In here, so if you have a multi-entity environment, you can post to the top level by leaving a blank, which I'm going to do, or I can post it down to one of the root levels as well. That's an option if you'd like to go that route. So you have a lot of flexibility of where your data goes. You can also choose the different transaction types. These, you can see they look a little unique because they're data blends. In our demo instance, these are the transactions that we have. And so you're not tied to just doing sales orders, just doing sales invoices. You can use your custom transaction definitions within order entry as well. So we'll do sales orders though. And then we have this group by field. This one I think is really powerful because if you think of a deal in your CRM, you might have 10 lines on there. You have your implementation charge, your support, then your subscription. You want all those lines to go into a single order. So you can group it by that deal ID, or I can group it by who was the customer that purchased it. So maybe they had 3 deals and I want to group it that way. So you can add any values from the prior screen into that so that you can make sure that it creates a sales order that ties back to exactly how you want it to look within Intacct. For today, we're going to leave that blank. We're going to hit next. You can see this one's doing a lot. You can see just in those 4 steps that probably take you about a minute to go through, it's going to go through and create over a dozen different things within this integration, all at a click of a button. And you'll see it'll run through each one of those now. I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to move this to number 3. I like to number them. It puts them in order. It helps me just logically think of what I need to do. First, I'm going to update my customers, then my items. Then I'm going to update my order entry transactions because they feed off each other. You can't create an order entry that you don't have a customer for or the SKUs for set up already. So I like to put them in that order. I'm going to let that run. But while that's running, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to hop into the workflow because so far all I've done was click the run button. But the point of automation is that you don't have to click the run button. And so you also have the ability here to hop in and schedule these. And I can choose a preset and say I want it to run every day of the week. Simply click through those days. And I want it to run before I get into the office, which lately is going to be about 5 a.m. Hit OK here. And I'm going to have it run it as me. We'll do Zachary transform. And I'll go back to my dashboard. And now you'll see in my schedule, I have that workflow ready to go. So not only did we create it, but we also added a schedule. And now this every single day of the week, it's going to run, or the business days of the week, it's going to run at 5 a.m. and I don't have to think about it. It's going to just process this integration. You can see here, it completed this one again under a minute. And if I went into Intacct, you now see those order entry transactions as well. So I'd say that probably took about 10 minutes or less with me kind of over explaining everything along the way. But you'll see that once you jump in there and go through even 3 wizards for 3 different use cases where a person would be manually moving data potentially or keying in data between these systems, we got it done in under 10 minutes. And they're all functional. They're all passing data between the 2 systems.